Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Force number 6, cover dated January 1992. The cover is by Rob Liefeld. You can just see his signature there around the back of Sauron there, just in yellow. And so it's penciled and inked by him. It's a pretty energetic, it's a pretty dynamic cover with Shatterstar there, obviously reflecting the fact that Shatterstar at this time period was a very popular character, new character, but popular. So getting the cover treatment, yeah, that's a nice cover. And also we've got a little advertisement there for more of the cable guides regarding members of X-Force. So let's open this one up to the splash page. And we do indeed get a splash page there. Interesting, the choice to knock out the background, so we get our focus in on Strife sitting in his chair there, his throne, sitting on his throne rather, and this weird design, this kind of like evil looking skull there on the top of the throne. It's interesting, it's funny looking, and Zero there being very mysterious, never speaks, and what exactly is he? So we also have, and this is noteworthy, finally a little banner statement regarding the team now that the team is finally together, because Siren joined in the previous issue. So Cable, Domino, Cannonball, Warpath, Siren, Feral, Boom Boom, Shatterstar, children of the Atom, born as mutants with fantastic powers and abilities, bound together as soldiers fighting a dirty war for the survival of their species. So that's interesting. Bound together as soldiers, fighting a dirty war for the survival of their species. Like a different kind of mission statement and essence of this particular X-book summed up in that statement. So Strife has a monologue, because of course Zero's silent, where he is concerned, at least ostensibly, with whether or how his enemies might be laughing at him. They look at me and laugh. Zero, let them. He says it's all working to perfection. So what is working to perfection? They look and laugh because they think they see a failure. My safe houses have been uncovered. My mission's undone. That is a reference back to X-Force number 1, the last time that we saw Strife. Cable and his little X-Force cannon fodder have insinuated themselves into our operations time and time again. And they all laugh, thinking me unimportant in the greater scheme of things. How little they know of what has been and what is to come. So we have some building up of Strife once again as a formidable threat to Cable and to X-Force in the course of these pages. Interesting double page spread here. We've got the computer screens there with an array of figures that Strife is interested in. So he talks about them, these self-proclaimed movers and shakers. Gideon, money is his manner, more the fool he. Cable, so inherently noble, so destined to fail. Bishop and Fitzroy, what's the saying, a stitch in time? Poor fools, these two. They are but minor threads in the greater tapestry of existence. Xavier and Magneto, yin and yang, order and chaos, never to learn they could do so much more together than apart, if only each would make sacrifices of ego. So many players in the game, all thinking themselves the chess man in control of the pieces on the board. So of course the implication will be that Strife is really the one who's in charge and has the overview of what's going on. But we don't get any explanation of who this is here. I'm assuming it's one of Bishop's lieutenants, or lieutenants to use the American pronunciation, either Randall or Malcolm there perhaps, but doesn't get mentioned by Strife. I like the use of screen tone here for the knocked out TV screens as well. And then we move over to this side of the page and we have Strife taking off his helmet. And I like the way that we get the sound effects there as he unhooks it from whatever's latching it onto his the top of his torso armor there. And he continues with his monologue. Let them think me laughable, a failure, a minor pawn. Too late will they realize that only someone who's tried and failed time and again knows the dirty road that lies ahead. Let them laugh, Zero, the flashing eye. Now this is a revelation from the end of New Mutants, number 100, but for readers of X-Force only, it probably would be a surprise to them to see that Strife has the same face as Cable, and that is of course like a major mystery in this time period. What is the relationship between the pair? And Strife continues and says, and when all is said and done, When the dust is settled on the battlefield, that's when we both know who will be laughing last, don't we, Zero? Oh yes, we do indeed. So he's got plans and schemes, and interestingly, the idea is that he plans to fail, and in his failure will be his victory. So that's intriguing. So now we get an establishing shot of Manhattan, New York. The buildings go higher and higher every year, and soon those at the top will forget about those left on the bottom. But then the view shifts to the tunnels under Manhattan, and of course, who lives in the lowermost tunnels under Manhattan except for the Morlocks. So these couple of panels are nicely done by Liefeld. I mean, like, he doesn't have a reputation for the best of backgrounds or buildings, but this looks good. In these two panels, shifting from the skyscrapers to the tunnels and pipes beneath the sewerage tunnels beneath Manhattan. And here we have a little interview between the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, led now by the Toad. We've got Blob there. Interesting artistic choice as well to black out some of the flesh features of these characters and just leave open for color the costumes. And the colorist, who is Steve Buccellato, this will be revealed shortly, choosing to color everybody in there in this light blue with the grey background, indicating the lack of light down there in the Morlock tunnels. So Toad has a proposition to Mask, and Mask replies and says, on paper, an alliance between your Brotherhood and my Morlocks sounds good. So, sounds good, but it looks like he's got a problem with it. Then sign on the dotted line, ugly, says Blob there in the background. And now we get a look at Toad's new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. They were on the cover of the previous issue, but now we see them in story joined up. So Toad is the leader, as I said. Frederick, please, he says, forgive my blobs, manners, Mask. His gruffness is born of a lifetime's worth of emotional hardship. That's so funny. My offer, though, is indeed still on the table. We need each other. We wed your Morlocks to my Brotherhood in a marriage of mutual ambitions. Share with us in the elimination of humanity, as well as the domination of mutants. Your ranks are depleted, your army thinned by attrition and casualty, but still you have the fires of hatred burning inside you. This is great dialogue from Nicieza. He really has worked hard here to develop individual voices for all of these characters, working off of Rob Liefeld's plot. So let's look at the credits, because we finally get them here. They're very muted, just very small lettering here for the credits. The title, Under the Gun, we've got a little pistol in there shooting through that. That's a little bit of inventiveness from Chris Eliopoulos. So the creative team, Rob Liefeld, credited with plot and art. Fabian Nicieza, the script. Chris Eliopoulos, letters, and Steve Buccellato, colors. Now, once again, there is a fact that's missing from the credits roll, and that is that Marat Mychaels gets a credit in X-Force number 7 for the inks on this particular issue. So Liefeld is doing the pencils. He's doing more than layouts, which was all he did in the previous issue. So he's back on the pencils, and I think you can see it in the quality and consistency of the art. But Marat Mychaels is doing the inking here. Now, Rob Liefeld does say that when he was working on X-Force, that he himself did the inking on faces. Like, that's something that he considers important. And so it may be that he's inked some of the faces throughout the issue, but all of the rest of the inks are by Marat Mychaels. So again, there's a bit of disagreement here between Mask and Toad. I like that shot of Mask there, a lot of his face in silhouette, and of course that big grin on his face. That's pretty good. He says he asks Toad the question, by what right do you perceive yourself as superior? And someone, not the Toad, says, by right of action, Mask. So let's turn the page here, and this is a surprise. So this looks rather like Feral in many regards. The Toad knows you cannot see the light by lurking in the shadows. He knows the only way for mutants such as we to earn their rightful due is through force of action. And he'll have Thorn, so that's her name, on his side for that. And I say the rest of we Morlocks want to taste some blood as well, starting now, and starting with Mask's biggest mistake as leader of the Morlocks. We want the escaped one killed. We want Feral. So there hasn't been a lot of information on Farrell's background, and now we're learning that she was once upon a time a Morlock, and that she's escaped from them, and that this one wants her back. And who is this? Like, could it be her sister? Could it be a family relation? Like, what's going on with the family resemblance between the pair? And also, clearly Rob Liefeld getting some inspiration from watching the Thundercats cartoon in the late 80s as well, with these characters. So what does Mask say to that? That's an interesting top-down angle here as well. I think it works well. Mask says, "It would appear Thorn speaks for my clan," he says to Toad. And Toad says, "Indeed," quite provocatively, I might add. "Very well then, in respect to our newly forged alliance, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants will perform an act of charity on behalf of our Morlock partners. We'll take X-Force down for you." Okay. And then he says, in relishing this detail, "and we'll make it a very bloody affair for good measure." And just, again, look at that demonic grin on his face. And then we have a weird bit here where we shift to the Adirondack Secret Mountain headquarters of X-Force. And we've got this top-down shot of Cable and Domino sharing a bath, and we know that they have a prior relationship, but we don't know exactly the nature of that. And now it seems that their relationship is more than just colleagues, but also that there's a sexual dimension to it. So Domino says here, and I like the way that Nicieza implies this in the dialogue. This is the kind of thing that might go over the head of a 10-year-old, but if you're a little older, you know exactly what's between the lines of what's going on here. So Domino says, "I'm getting too old for these kinds of workouts. You flatter me," says Cable. "I was talking about the Danger Room sequence." "Oh, never mind." So he's put in his place. And then he talks about, he gets back to business there. "Did you go over that ordnance allotment I ordered?" And she says, "Yup, it all checks out." Cable, what would the look on her face here doesn't exactly match the dialogue, but in any case, this is what Nicieza has written for a Cable. "What would the kids think if they knew you were getting most of your hardware from AIM, so Advanced Idea Mechanics, like a villainous organization?" And he says he doesn't give a fig. "I don't see how the ethics of where you're buying your guns from can come into play. It is the height of hypocrisy." So remember, they're a band of soldiers fighting a dirty war, and this is the dirty dimension to their fight. Advanced Idea Mechanics creates weapons that are as close to anything I'm accustomed to as I'm likely to find, here and now, that is. So another hint about Cable's time traveling there in the dialogue too. So they continue with the chat. Interesting use of the screen tone there in the background, kind of implying tiling even, I think. And Domino says, "I know it, and you know it, but they might not. Speaking of which, have you given any further thought to telling them the truth about your past? I mean, at least Sam and Boom Boom." And that's something that Domino, that was a conversation that happened between Cannonball and, in particular, Cannonball and Cable in the previous issue, and Cable wasn't willing to tell Cannonball anything he didn't already know, is holding back secrets. And so here he is thinking, or rather saying to Domino, "I had really, but both of them have been acting too, I don't know, self-righteous. I don't think they're ready to know yet." Ready to know what? Like the readers want to know as well. So Domino gets up out of the bath and says, "You're going to have to come clean sooner or later, Nate. We both know that. Why put it off? Why are you so afraid of telling them the truth?" "Afraid," he says. "I'm not. I'll tell them when I think they're ready. Let's drop it, okay?" "Drop what?" "Thanks." So she does drop it. So again, just seeding more mystery in terms of, well, what is Cable's background? Why doesn't he want to tell everything to Cannonball and Boom Boom? Well, like our guess would be because he's got a dirty past, yes, and he doesn't want to share that because he'll lose their trust and maybe their loyalty 30 yards away in the mess hall, so in the kitchen area. So there's a little bit of banter here between Cannonball and Boom Boom regarding making peanut butter jelly sandwiches, and then she gets wind of the fact that Ferrell's arrived, and maybe it's even by smell. Oh, the alley cat just dragged herself in. A Cannonball wants her to drop it, and she says, "I will not. let it rest, Samuel Guthrie. A month ago, she nearly ripped your guts out. That was in Cable number 2, or not Cable, but X-Force number 2. Cable punishes her with some harsh language, and everything's pretty as you please since then. I like that. That reminded me of that line in Aliens, the second film, where Hudson, played by Bill Paxton, when the order is given to put away their guns and only use flamethrowers, and he says, "What are we supposed to use? Harsh language." It reminded me of that. Anyway, this is a great little panel here as well, where Boom Boom basically says, like, she's not going to forget all of that negative. "You listen here, Feral. We don't like you and we don't trust you. None of us do, especially me and Sam. Cable says you stay, then I guess you stay. But just stay out of our faces while you stay anywhere else. Capiche?" And so Feral's getting worked up here. "Don't do this. I'm not in the mood." She says, "Who gives a pair of underwear what mood you're in? Just don't forget what I said." So a squaring off between these two female members of the team. And also interesting too, another screen tone in the background, this kind of leaf pattern, and kind of implies wallpaper in the kitchen area of their headquarters. It's interesting. It looks really well. This is a really well drawn page, and that's a very good pose there on Boom Boom. That's done well. On the other hand, this side profile on Boom Boom makes her look a little bit too male. She looks a little bit too male in that particular drawing. Even has the kind of slight indication of an Adam's apple there, so that's gone a little bit wrong there. This is a good page too, where Feral's getting more and more worked up as Boom Boom storms away. Nice top-down angle there. And we get this, like the camera, so to speak, like closes in on Feral as she gets angrier and angrier. "Oh, big mistake," she says. "Big, big, big mistake. And you'll find out just how big real soon." I like the lettering there from Chris Eliopoulos as well. That's really nicely done. So a little bit of an implication here, from what we learned earlier. Feral's a Morlock, and maybe she's not to be trusted. And why was she a prisoner of the Morlocks in the first place? Like, what's her history? So there's all these mysteries and intrigue in the early issues of X-Force to keep readers glued and coming back month after month to find out who all these characters are exactly. And then the scene switches outside. So this is something that Rob Liefeld will sometimes do, have a scene switch at the bottom of the page, the last panel of the page. So it's an interesting stylistic tick of his storytelling. So we're outside and we're for another training session. And the one thing I'll say is that the previous issue and this issue, there's a lot of mystery, a lot of intrigue, and not much in the way of straight action, as in X-Force versus some antagonist. We don't really get too much of that in the previous issue and this issue until the very end of this issue. So now we have this live training session because Shatterstar is a bit tired of the limits of the Danger Room training. So he wants a flesh and blood opponent. Warpath makes the point, so basically Warpath interprets it humorously, saying, so basically you'd like me to beat you around a little in order for you to prove you can take it. And so Shatterstar says, I would have not worded it that way, but in essence, yes. Shatterstar doesn't do humor really. And he continues and says, and Siren could act as a failsafe measure should the battle lust inflame our blood to a dangerous degree. And I like Warpath's response, okie dokie, and he just punches him in the jaw. Now this is a good page here. Storytelling on this page is pretty good. So we have them facing off, and Warpath's not happy with Shatterstar using the blades that he's got in his hands, and punches him again straight in the jaw. And that pretty much knocks Shatterstar to the ground, but he comes back. He must bounce back. Now this is really good. This is a nice anchor image here. That is a nice pose on Shatterstar, and it makes me wonder, was Liefeld looking at anything to get that pose? It is his anatomy there, so my feeling is he's not directly copying someone else, but he could be looking at someone else pulling off this pose. It's really well done. It looks good. Shatterstar says, you do have the fire inside you, Proud Star. You would thrive very nicely on my world, and worry not in regards to my cutting blades. I would never use them in training against a friend. Okay, well, that's a relief, eh? So he kicks Warpath, looks like it's in the shoulder, punches him in the face and is leaping towards him, but Warpath grabs him by the neck or the throat and punches him with his other hand. So he grabs him with his left and he punches him with the right. And that looks almost as if he's broken his back there. So he's taking a real pounding, is Shatterstar. But this is a nice couple of pages here. Nicely done. And yeah, and the action flows really well. And just look too that Nicieza has decided to allow the art to speak for itself. So he clearly also is looking at this and thinking, this is good. This reads well on its own. Let's not clutter it up with too many words. So let's continue. And here we have Warpath standing over Shatterstar. And like, that's the end of the training. Shatterstar says, why don't we call it... No, sorry, it's Siren intervenes. Why don't we call it an afternoon, boyos? Go back to my makeshift pub and have a pint? Well, that sounds good. So Warpath concurs and he says, Theresa's right. Enough. I meant what I said, Shatter. This isn't a game to me. It isn't fun. I'm in this for vengeance, and we learned that in the previous issue. He's out for vengeance against, very specifically, the Hellfire Club. Pure and simple. And Shatterstar makes the point, as am I in many ways. You see, we still don't have his full backstory. I just do not let it rule my every waking moment. Such consummation of spirit. And this is interesting, this page turn here, because you're thinking we're just going to get the end of this conversation between them and maybe back to whatever Theresa's makeshift pub is. By the way, we have a name for that in Hiberno English, and that is a she-bean. That's what she's talking about there. In any case, there's a surprise, there's a twist, and it's nice that it comes on the page turn too. So who's arrived except for the Brotherhood? So we've got Blob and we've got Pyro, and they got the jump obviously on Siren, and Warpath fills in Shatterstar. Blob and Pyro form a freedom force. The fat one is immovable, enhanced strength. The twerp, I just like that from Nicieza in the dialogue, is pyrokinetic, controls fire. So Shatterstar gets it, understood. Either's good for me. Like, he'll take on either one of them. I like that too. He's confident, you know. And Siren asks, how did you find us here? So that is a question, because it's supposed to be a secret base in the Adirondack Mountains. So Toad explains the Morlocks are well informed. Among the mutant underground, they knew of your taking Trask's former base as your own. So that's the explanation there. But now Pyro here is saying, you'd be surprised, lassie. They even knew you were a part of the parcel, really. And then she uses her power, her scream, to bounce away from Pyro and tells the two lads, take them down. So now we get a fight. But what happens is that Shatterstar, who was happy enough to take out either Blob or Pyro, is picked up off the ground by Sauron. And that's a very good panel there as well. Good drawings on these pages from Liefeld. Warpath neglected to inform me about you, creature, he says. So Sauron introduces himself. Let's see what he has to say regarding who he is. And by the way, the backgrounds here, these are like easy to do. You know, just nature, just trees and shrubbery and the mountain in the background. But it works well. So here we go. We're on the last page, actually. So we've got two big panels, two big vertical panels. Sauron saying, and I'm the harbinger of your dying breath. He just basically says what his name is and that he is going to be death for Shatterstar. He's got no more explanation than that. Obviously, Liefeld enjoying, but probably, well, Marat Mychaels doing the rendering here in the inks. But like the textures there on Sauron's leathery reptilian skin. Probably some fun to render that. And over here, we've got a nice top-down angle on Blob and Pyro and Toad. And we're going to get a boast from Toad and a command. Frederick St. John. That's Pyro's first name there. And that's how you pronounce it, by the way. Not St. John, but St. John. Frederick St. John, if you would please, show these whelps what it means to confront the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So, continued next issue, and you'd rather expect that. And that's a nice cliffhanger. And as I said, like after 2 issues of a lot of intrigue, of a lot of moving little plot lines forward, it's nice to have the promise of an action issue coming up next month. So we turn this to the side there for the cable guide to Domino. That's a very nice drawing of Domino by Liefeld. That's nicely done. Let's continue. We've got one there as well for Cannonball, another nice drawing. Let's see, who else do we have? We've got one there for Warpath. That's a pretty good drawing of him. And we've got one more as well. So no letters page this month. And the last one is Sunspot. So not a member of X-Force, but obviously formerly a member of New Mutants and a former teammate of Cannonball and Boom Booms. So that's the guide there to Sunspot. I like this ad here for Warlock and the Infinity Watch. Look at the creative team. Jim Starlin, writer, of course. Angel Medina on the art. Later on, he would go on to pencil Incredible Hulk. And Terry Austin on inks. That looks good. That would have made me at the time if I'd seen this ad, because I didn't pick up this comic at the time. And this was actually my first time seeing this particular ad. I think it would have intrigued me about the comic. It looks good. It looks sharp. There you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Force number 6. Let me know what you think about this issue, the content, the art, the story in the comments to the video. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like the video on YouTube. It really helps the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.